Security analyst Femi joins us now to discuss the new appointments and set agendas for the new security chiefs. Good afternoon and welcome to Arise News.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you for honoring the invitation. Well, let's begin. I would like to know your take on, these new appointments, specifically as the president has gone against the trend of appointing a non-military officer as the national security advisor.
Well, it speaks volume of the president's intention on his strategy on how to address the issue of banditry and the whole issue of security in our country. Because first and foremost, we all understand that part of the reasons why you need a national security advisor is because he's going to be managing the information across all the different security infrastructure we have in our country, about 47 of them. To report to them, look at the intelligence part of it, and come up with a strategy on how these things to be done. And don't forget, Ribadu, in his, as much we know about him, when he was the FCC chair, he was able to use intelligence and information across the globe to reduce that. So you're looking at a system where, first of all, the strategy, I think, in my view, the president is probably trying to see how he can cut off the resources of the Islamized terrorists in our country. By cutting off their resources, tracking their resources, you would have been able to reduce terrorism to a very large extent. That could also be part of the strategy. And also working with the Nigerian police, the new IG, and collaborating with Ribadu as the National Security Advisor is a fantastic choice.
Okay, so let's talk about the issue of interagency cooperation and intelligence sharing. Let's not forget that when President Bola Ahmed Tinubu paid a visit previously, he had said that it was very important very crucial in combating security threats. So how do you anticipate that the new leadership will work towards improving coordination among the various security agencies and fostering a more cohesive approach to tackling insecurity?
Well, it must be mentioned that looking at the profile of those that have just been appointed as service chiefs, you see that these are battle-tested officers who are not just coming to the terrain. They've been part of the ongoing war over time. They've been they have been tried and tested. They're very professional-minded officers. If you go through their profile, their records of activities in the Army, the Navy, and even the customs, you'll see that these are very educated and very professional-minded officers. I believe they understand the level of intelligence. Most of them have, aspirant trainings abroad, with tactical approach to how things like this can be resolved. The issue of security can be taken care of in our country, not just using the applying the carrot and stick approach. Not everything about security that can be addressed with the first part of it. There's also the other part of it that also comes into that getting the result we all deserve for our country. He's really focused. I know everybody that wants to work with the current president knows that he has very little tolerance for mediocrity. So for him to have come up with these officers, and if you go through their profile, their records, their exposure, and it shows that these are very fantastic choices. And not let's also forget, the prison of government, had a transition committee where most of this information about everything that happened in the past were transmitted. So they have results of what they are working with. I'm sure they must have studied those reports, what went wrong, what should be done better. The transition report that was handed over to the current president by the former president, and for them to come up with decisions of this new appointment we're experiencing today, which in my view is going to be very, very, very interesting. We have very interesting days ahead.
Well, duly noted. Mr. Dara, I'm just wondering, it seems that we're looking at a possible mirroring of what we see in the political sphere trying to be represented in the security aspect. When it comes to representation or geopolitical representation, we have seen some comments that said that North Central probably was not reflected in this. Should it matter at all when it comes to security, like it tends to matter when it comes to politics?
Well, security is not, is a totally different ballgame. You know, we cannot bring politics to security. It's just like joining, flying on an aircraft. You don't really, you're not really interested in who the tribe of the native of the pilot. All you just want to do, you want to arrive safely to destination. So if, we cannot bring politics, even as much as the appointment have been a bit, have been putting the geographical locations into consideration, has been a bit balanced, but we cannot bring the different part of where we come from, to the security of our country. Because security is all we all need. It's everybody's business, irrespective of where you come from. Oftentimes I find it difficult to understand why people try to, bring religion or ethnicity into security. Security is a professional business. Lives are involved. Our economy is a shambles. Our mineral resources have been exploited because of crisis we have in those places. So we have to take religion and ethnicity out of it. Let's combat and solve the security problem so we can, attract foreign investors to our country. And everybody will be happier for it. It's going to be beneficial to everybody. So breaking ethnicity, religion, after all, if these guys are from your locality or from your state, how does it benefit you if security is not, if your security and your welfare is not being taken care of? So I think it's too early in the days for us to be looking at the ethnic part of it. As a country, we're all Nigerians. We all have a job to do. All we need to do is to support the newly appointed army chiefs to achieve the result and provide the necessary security we have need for our country.
Okay, I want to bring you back, Mr. Dara, I want to bring you back to the NSA in particular. Now, the appointment of a non-military officer as the National Security Advisor breaks the traditional trend. We know that Ribadu is widely recognized for his remarkable track record as the chairman of the EFCC, where he spearheaded the fight against corruption during his tenure. And while his experience in law enforcement and the fight against financial crimes may have earned him respect, questions are arising regarding his expertise in handling broader security matters that extend beyond his previous role at the EFCC. Now, my question to you is, what are the potential advantages and disadvantages of having a non-military officer in this crucial role? And what impact will it have on the nation's security architecture?
Very, very good question. You see, the role of the National Security Advisor is more of a clearinghouse role where all the security architecture, all the agencies bring out information, they put it together and make a meaning out of it. Because it's not, every department, all these army chiefs have their functions to do, but we're looking at information gathering and how do you filter this information and create policies out of that, And if you look at this interagency rivalry of experience in the past, it is because each of these different security agencies feel they try to look at security over the other. But the National Security Advisor role is not bordered around how those different institutions operate, but it's how they collate these informations together and create a policy out of it, and use the intelligence part of it to advise the president, in an adversary manner. And don't forget, Ribadu has tremendous experience when it comes to that. Working with the Interpol when he was doing when he was chairman of the FCC, and all the gathering information and being able to take those information that are gathered together to achieve a particular goal, come up with the right policy that will give the right result. It's not about, superiority of your role in the armed forces that counts. He is not in that space. His own space is to collect information, work with the information they get from different agencies. There are about 47 or 37 agencies under that reports to the National Security Advisor. He gets this information from them, collate it. How is he able to collate it? Because if chairman of EFCC could be able to do that effectively and was able to curb corruption, using the same strategy, collecting information from different agencies in different states in the country, collaborating with external organizations to be able to bring corruption to where we were able to celebrate him. Then, of course, collating it locally and also bringing the collaboration of what his experience over the years into play in advising the president, the National Security Advisor to the president. I believe it's going to be, I see better days ahead because, first and foremost, one of the most critical aspects of our fight against terrorists is how to, cut off their resources. That is a very critical part of this fight. If we're not able to cut off their resources, then the fight is going to take long. And if Ribadu, from his years of experience as chairman of the FCC, knows how to collaborate with international organizations to see how we can cut off the resources that funds terrorism in our country, banditry in our country, I believe we would have solved our security solution problem, by over 70 or 80%.
Well said, Mr. Dare. That's a very significant point. I would also like to ask you, if you could buttress that a bit more. If you had the opportunity to set the agenda for these new appointees, what would it be beyond what you just said about, cutting off the resources that fund terrorism and banditry?
Fantastic. My own advice is we're very quick to celebrate false finish lines in our country. When you're dealing with a group of people who decide to choose time and venue each time they want to take up their, they can decide to be silent for 6 months, and the next time they are out there, so these new armed forces must have a way of working with the communities. Create some level of partnership with the communities. The local governments in each of these states should be responsible for their locality, because each of these crimes starts, everything about security is from locals. Some level of orientation, partnership must start from the grassroots. The chairman of the local government has a role to play. Traditional leaders have their role to play. All Nigerians have a role to play. One thing we must not take our eyes off is the areas where we have natural resources in our country. That's why it is easy to speculate that there's an international dimension to what we're experiencing as banditry and terrorism in our country. So that is one area they must focus on. And I'm very happy by the appointment, because most of these officers are infantry soldiers, which means a whole lot. And they've been there. They've had very tactical, positions in the military, and I believe harnessing their potentials together, and as the president of advice, share intelligence, and good enough you have someone like Ribadu, who is the National Security Advisor, who can be able to collate those informations together. I believe, in no distant time, we have reason to celebrate.
Right then, thank you so much, security analyst Dare, Femi, Mr. Femi Dare.